Hey y'all, Scotty here. It's late February 2021. With millions of Americans getting vaccinated, it's looking like the COVID-19 pandemic will be pretty much over by summertime. The other good news? Most of us survived the 2020 election, the violent protest at the Capitol January 6th, and Joe Biden's inauguration last month. The bad news? It's looking more and more like our republic, our nation, might not survive. And not just because Democratic Party promises of unity and restoring the soul of America were happy horse crap. We've got roughly 1/3 of Americans on the right claiming, for some apparent reason, that the man they kind of think of as their savior was cheated out of the election. While roughly another third of Americans on the left who insist that the man that they kind of think of as their savior won fair and square. Of course, both sides are claiming that the other side is an existential threat to our democracy. If you're like me, a member of the roughly 1/3 of Americans in the middle, you're sick of this crap, and you're feeling cheated out of honest, competent government. If, like me, you believe that the only way out of this mess is for we the people to come together under the guidance of a real savior, as well as the values and principles of our nation's founding fathers, then this video series is for you. I'm doing this mainly for America's young people, the millennials and the iGen kids, also known as Generation Z or Zoomers. You guys are being cheated not just today, but likely far into the future. And I've heard what you've said about my generation, the baby boomers, that we've got it made and don't care about you. Well, you're pretty much right about the first part. From my perspective, and to tell you a little about me, I was born in 1959 on the rednecky side of a redneck town. This was a time in American history when an underachieving schmuck doing low-level accounting work, earning less than a forklift operator, could get married, buy a home, raise 4 kids, buy a brand new car, take the family away on vacation about every year, even send the kids to a Catholic school. All on one income. Now, it's true that my stay-at-home mom earned a little extra money typing part-time at home for a local accounting firm. But that money went into savings for furniture and for a newfangled color TV for a big new home that my parents were planning to have built. It's kind of important for me to mention at this point that helping mom proofread her typing helped make me a really good reader at a young age. Pretty much the same time when in school I was reading stuff like Sam Ate Green Eggs and Ham. At home, reading off of handwritten original documents while mom proofread her typing. I'd be reading stuff like, accelerated depreciation of capital equipment resulted in significant tax savings for the fiscal year. Obviously, I would trip over the big words the first few times, but mom would correct my pronunciation. If I asked, what's that mean? She'd give a quick explanation, we'd move on. Well, at that age, too dumb to know any better, I got it in my head that if I could read grown-up business documents, why, I could dang sure read grown-up newspapers too. Sometimes if I was bored and mom was in the kitchen cooking or cleaning, I'd sit down at the kitchen table with the front page of the Sunday paper and start reading some article out loud. Mom would often have to correct my pronunciation, sometimes say, spell that? But I'd get it. She'd explain what words meant, and at some point showed me how to use a dictionary so I could look up words myself, not be such a nuisance. The thing is, reading is a skill, and as with any skill, the better you get at it, not only the easier it becomes, but the better you're able to get at it. And in a world full to the brim with horse crap, being able to evaluate something that somebody is saying, literally being able to judge the value of what somebody is saying, You first have to be able to perfectly understand what that person is saying. A half-assed understanding ain't good enough, because then you're just going on your impression of how smart, how knowledgeable, how competent, how honest that person is. Ain't no surprise to me at all that the majority of Americans are angry and confused about what's going on politically in this country, because they're unable to find the few pearls of wisdom in the vast ocean of horse crap that is modern American media, which is what I want to help my beloved viewers do. I was blessed with the God-given natural-born ability to process language pretty well. At a young age, I was blessed with the opportunity to earn some cookies or ice cream, helping Mom proofread and become a really good reader. And over half a century of wading through that ocean of horse crap to find those few pearls of wisdom has made me pretty good at it. My goal in this series is to bring you those pearls of wisdom translated from nerd speak into plain everyday language that everybody should be able to understand. Back to my story. In 1967, my parents bought a nice couple acres outside of town and hired a contractor to build a big new home on it. In late 1968, Dad lost his job for a big manufacturing company. Well, this started a trend of Dad being between jobs a few more times up through the mid-70s for reasons too complicated to get into. The point is that my parents started fighting a lot about money and other stuff, including Dad's drinking. I didn't know it at the time, but my parents, for all intents and purposes, broke up around 1970, but remained living under the same roof because the D word was pretty much unspeakable amongst German Catholics on the west side of Cincinnati back then. Pretty much still is today. My parents managed to keep us kids in St. Barnyard's Catholic school through 8th grade, and then we went to the public high school, which to me totally sucked. The only classes I liked in 9th grade were wood shop and drafting. In 10th grade, electronic shop and drafting. Naturally, I went into a vocational program my junior and senior years. They didn't have a building trades program, which would have been my first choice, so I went into electronics, which I thought was kind of cool, and I could learn how to fix amplifiers and stuff for the band that I was in. Long story short, I graduated in 1977 without a real high school education or any real marketable skills either. And by then, America's economy sucked. The thing is, it was hard to find a job in those days, but if you had any job at all, it paid pretty good. By then, Dad was working at a hospital in a low-level accounting job that would soon be replaced by a computer. But he got me a job there, and by '79 I was working in a stockroom, earning the equivalent of about $14 an hour. That's when I found out about a Votech college with a really good co-op job program. I enrolled there and thought I'd hit the jackpot when I got a job at what once was a major, well-respected machine tool company. I was so proud to be working there, I bought not one, but 2 company t-shirts. As a field service tech trainee doing little to no useful work, I was getting paid $5 an hour. That's equivalent to around $17 an hour today. I started working there full-time when I graduated Votech in '81, bought my first house in '82. But by late 1984, I was getting tired of that job, tired of all the traveling, and the manager of a shop where I'd set up a machine in South Florida had mentioned that he could use a guy like me working there. With another cold, gray, depressing Ohio winter coming on, I decided to blow town, leaving a friend in my house paying rent to my mom, who had divorced Dad by then, and I took an even better paying job at that tool and die shop in South Florida. I wasn't a machinist, much less a tool and die maker, just a skilled machine operator, but I was making close to 30 grand a year. That's close to around 70 grand a year today. The thing is, it was boring work with a lot of overtime, and I did a lot of reading about all the incompetence and corruption in American government. By 1989, I had a good chunk of money in the bank. That's when I made the tragically stupid decision to leave that job and go back to school to change careers and become a teacher. Long story short, I graduated broke in 1992, and all I really learned is that teachers are awesome people, somehow able to put up with all the crap they got to put up with, including all the bureaucratic nonsense. I still kind of wanted to be a teacher, but thanks to America's education president gutting federal funding for public schools, none of them were even hiring new teachers. I didn't want to go back into machine trade, so I mostly worked 10-buck an hour jobs until I was earning enough at my hobby job as a self-employed craftsman, so I didn't have to work for anybody else anymore. By 1998, Dad had fully retired. He sold his house up north, came down and bought a cheap condo on the west coast of Florida, where he offered to help me buy a house near him so he'd have a family member nearby to look after him. Well, I did that, and by 2006 had paid him off, owned this old house free and clear. In 2011, when Dad passed away, I managed to buy my older brother's half of Dad's condo that we inherited. Did pretty much the same thing with Mom's place after she passed away in 2019. She had moved to Florida in 2001 and bought a 1973 Skylark double wide in a resident-owned park. The point I want to make, if you're a millennial or an iGen kid, you're right that most of us boomers have it made. At 61 years old, I'm pretty much retired with a good chunk of retirement savings in the bank. I own my home and what was Dad's condo and Mom's mobile home free and clear. And in a few years, I qualify to start collecting free money from the government, paid for by you, as well as almost free health care paid for by you. What's even more crazy is that during a little over 40 years, from 1980 till today, our national debt went from the equivalent of about $2 trillion, already an astronomical amount, to going on $30 trillion. And guess what? I'm not expected to have to repay a penny of that. Why? Because a tiny percentage of filthy rich so-called elites have rigged the system so that they don't have to repay a penny of it either. But it gets worse. Politicians in both parties have basically adopted Buzz Lightyear's catchphrase when it comes to increasing that debt even more.
To infinity and beyond!
What is literally insane is the fact that none of America's experts in government, at the Federal Reserve, in any of these elite colleges or think tanks, none of these so-called experts has any freaking clue whatsoever when that debt bomb will go off or what the result will be. Any more than they have a freaking clue what will happen, not if but when, the most massive stock market bubble in the history of the world finally bursts. Do you think they even care that America's rich have been fleeing the stock market like rats fleeing a sinking ship, buying up homes in America? Not just making the dream of home ownership, but a real stake in American society more and more impossible for America's young? And because roughly 40% of homes in America, closer to 100% in some cities, are being bought up by corporations, there ain't a damn thing that we can do about it. That's because the Supreme Court has ruled time and time again that corporations have the same rights, protections, and privileges under our Constitution as we American citizens. And thanks to their happy to oblige politicians in Washington, corporations have in some ways even more rights, more protections, and more privileges than we do. You millennials and iGen kids are right about most of us boomers having it made, but you are wrong about us not caring about you. The majority of us are sickened by what a tiny percentage of filthy rich a-holes have done to corrupt what used to be an epic achievement on the part of our nation's founding fathers. That's because unlike those filthy rich a-holes, most of us are not freeloaders who want to enjoy the benefits of living in the greatest nation on earth and then leaving behind a mess for America's young. As a man who tries to live his life in accordance with the teachings of Jesus, except for that whole church on Sunday thing, I feel it's our moral obligation to look after one another. And as a patriotic American, I believe it is our duty to serve this nation any way we can, which is why I'm doing this video series. I've spent about a half a century trying to find enough truth in a sea of lies, enough pearls of wisdom in that vast ocean of horse crap to have a pretty good understanding of what's going on in American politics. Do I have it all figured out? Hell no. But I know a little. And I know that oftentimes the most valuable information of all to have is where to get the right information, where to get the truth. Which brings me to the topic of this video series. There are people who have figured out what the fundamental problem is in American politics. Those same people have also figured out solutions, real solutions, not more ideological horse crap that will only keep us divided and accelerating down a path toward becoming a third world country. Who are these people? Nerds. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what people say when I tell them that nerds can solve our country's problems.
He's dumb as dirt, bless his heart.
It's cool. At least it's cool once I explain that there are different kinds of nerds, and not all of them pack the gear to be able to figure out solutions to problems. In fact, in the fields of politics and economics, the vast majority of them cannot. What's even worse is that there are nerds who deliberately work to prevent solutions to problems, because they profit from them. Our founding fathers warned us about such people. Maybe they should have made themselves more clear. Like the prophet Jeremiah, who said, "Among you are wicked men who lie in wait, like hunters waiting to snare birds. They set a trap, and they catch men. Like cages full of birds, their houses are full of deceit, and with it they become rich and powerful." An appalling and horrible thing has happened in the land. The trusted authorities lie, and the leaders rule on their own authority. And the people, way too many believers in this or that party, love it this way. Seem like it might be a good idea to know a little something about nerds? If so, in my next episode, I'll break it down for you. If you like this video, why not click the like button? I'll put a link to the next episode over here.